Ashe. Ashe. Ashe, I say to you all, my melanin brothers and sisters, the world over. Yes, it is I, the Mystic Philosopher, and welcome to this another of my podcast and blog post, themysticp.com. It's another perspective with I, the Mystic Philosopher. And yes, my melanin brothers and sisters, my melanin people, it is high time for reasoning. The title of this blog post and podcast is The Examined Life versus the Unexamined Life. Another perspective from I, the Mystic Philosopher. And of course, it is part of my presentation series called Redemption from the Curse of the Black Spell. And for all those of you, my listeners, that have watched, listened, or read any of my previous videos and blog posts in the series Redemption from the Curse of the Black Spell, you too will no doubt shortly hear, see, and agree that this is another of my thought-provoking presentations that is intended on providing my fellow highly melaninated brothers and sisters to think, provoking you, my fellow highly melanated brothers and sisters, to think and to reason outside of the common box. Now, Socrates is alleged to have said, and I quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living," unquote. Now, who is Socrates? Well, for your information, and some of you, my listeners, may be asking this question, who is Socrates? Well, for your information, according to the record, Socrates was a classical Greek philosopher that lived somewhere between 469 to 470 and to 399 BCE, before the Common Era, or some would say before Christ, and is considered to be the father of Western philosophy. Also, according to Wikipedia, free online encyclopedia, he, Socrates, was also credited as one of the founders of Western philosophy and as being the first moral philosopher of the Western ethical tradition of thought. He was a very interesting man who, according to the record, did not write anything himself, though a lot has been written about him. Socrates encouraged people to think and intellectually challenged themselves. And through the power of reasoning, he would also have individuals realize to themselves that they did not really know what they thought they knew. So for him to be classified as a classical Greek philosopher also means that he was considered as a very knowledgeable and a very wise man. And as a consequence, when he spoke, people listened, even to this day. And quite possible, some even practice what he, Socrates, preaches or preached. So when he said the unexamined life is not worth living, no doubt people, especially his devotees or his devoted followers, started to examine their own lives in a sincere attempt at making it worthwhile. Here is my brief perspective of the meaning of the above quote, of Socrates' quote. To examine simply means to closely inspect or closely inquire into issues such as ideological beliefs and the nature of things, etc. To examine one's life might involve asking oneself questions or seeking answers to questions such as, who am I? What am I? Where am I? From whence came I to be here? Why am I here? How did I get to be here? Where is here? Where is here that is not there? What is existence? What is life? Or what is the thing? Or what is this thing called life? What is the meaning and purpose of life? How do I know that I exist? How do I know that I know? And how do I know that I don't know? Examining one's life could also mean challenging the system's many conventional and accepted beliefs, teachings, and ideologies. Examples: by asking questions such as, what is civilization? Am I civilized? Why am I a civilized, aka a subject? Why am I a citizen, rather? Also known as a subject. Why am I a citizen, or why am I a subject? What is democracy? Do we truly live in a democratic society? What do I own? And can I really own anything? What is this thing called religion or religions? Do I know what I believe, or do I believe what I know? Why am I called and labeled black while Caucasians and other pale and melanin deficient skinned people are called and labeled white? Why are we, the Earth's highly melaninated and organic humans, we that are the pre-Adamic humans and the natural native earthly humans, why are we so hated? Why are we so subjugated, so denigrated? Why are we so unfairly mistreated and despised by all other races and peoples on the earth, and especially the alien races? And the list of questions goes on and on and on. All part of the examined life, also known as self-examination. On the contrary, though, or on the other hand, the unexamined life is the opposite of the above mentioned, the examined life. And it can be likened to a person that is just simply going with the flow. One that is just easy like a Sunday morning, according to Lionel Richie's song. One that is like a feather drifting in the wind of time, not knowing or not caring a damn if he or she comes or if he or she goes. He or she might even be seen as comparable to a sheep, as being docile, lacking the ability, or possible just too damn lazy to think independently for him or herself. Now, according to this great Western philosopher, Socrates, to live a life like that, an unexamined life, is one that is of little or no value whatsoever. that would be a life that is considered worthless by him. It's a waste. But the few questions, or the few big questions that I, the Mystic Philosopher, am hereby asking are as follows. Was he, Socrates, really right? If and when most things, if not all things, are considered, is there really much significant difference between the examined life and the unexamined life? And what really became of him in the end? Wasn't his life also proved to be a waste? With all the knowledge that he had attained, what became of it? And how did it truly benefited him? Didn't he also die a loser? At the very least, at the very least, didn't he not also lose his life and all his great wealth of knowledge and wisdom couldn't have saved him? What if he was a fool who simply kept his mouth shut? Is it possible that he could have, or maybe he could have saved his life and maybe live a little longer instead of being wise and died early by being forced by his enemies to drink poison? And assuming that he had reached the point where he was so wise that he did not want to live among those that from his perspective have wasted their lives by not examining their lives, then what was the purpose of all the knowledge that he had attained? From my perspective, one of the greatest lessons, if not the greatest lessons, that one can learn from this thing, or the awareness that we call life, this thing called life, or the awareness that we call life, is the thing called humility, also known as humbleness. That's his greatest lesson that we can learn from this thing called life. Humility, or also known as humbleness. In essence, it is to have a modest or low view of one's own importance. For the truth to be told, or the truth be told, none of us are really that important. The evidence will show, and the evidence has shown, that we came from nothing, and that we will, and that we must return to nothing. And even while we are aware of being here between nothing, we are still nothing trying to be something. From my perspective, one of the greatest lessons on humility, and one that was written approximately 3,500 years ago, which can also be found in the Adamic Race History and Holy Book, also known as the Christian Holy Bible. It is in the book of Ecclesiastes, where that is a book that is attributed to an ancient king of the ancient nation of Israel, known as Solomon. And in his book, or in the writing that is attributed to him, Ecclesiastes 1 and verse 18, and I read, and I quote, it said, "For with much wisdom comes many sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief." And I just read from the International Version, the NIV. And the same Ecclesiastes, this time from chapter 9 and the second verse, and I quote, he said, "All share a common destiny. The righteous and the wicked, the good and the bad, the clean and the unclean, those who offer sacrifices and those who do not. As it is with the good, so with the sinful, or with the bad. As it is with those who take oaths, so with those who are afraid to take them. Unquote. NIV version again. In summary, let us that think that we are wise, that we are awakened and enlightened. Let us constantly remind ourselves not to become cocky or to look down on others that we think are ignorant, others that we think are asleep, and the others that are still under the curse of the black spell. For the evidence will show, and the evidence does show, that we are nothing, and the same fate awaits us all. We'll return to nothing. Thanks for your time spent listening and watching my perspectives on the unexamined life versus the examined life. And your comments and questions and feedback are encouraged. For more thought-provoking insights and perspectives on many other topics, I hereby invite you to please check out the rest of my uploaded videos and podcasts and blog posts at www.themysticp.com, and also on my YouTube channel called The Right Number. That's youtube.com/The Right Number. I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.